Gen X does love guitars, but I was born in 1965, so depending on what social scientist you speak to, there's Miles Rose. Come on in, Miles. I even have another mic just in case somebody showed up. Move all the stuff. We're talking about, you'd love this conversation, actually. Let me get you a microphone. How are you, buddy?
Good.
Good to see you.
I was going to talk to you about mentioning the tube thing the impurities thing.
Oh, yeah, we can get into that, too. One of the things we're discussing, I guess there's an article in the Washington Post right now about a 1954 Les Paul that was a prototype, and George Gruen and all these guys are passing on it. And so bear with me for a second.
Misconceptions in that article. The article was poorly written.
Yeah, but maybe we want to move this closer to you. Just pull the table over. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is that I think vintage guitars are way overvalued, mainly for two reasons, one of which is the electric guitar is a baby boomer instrument. So the demand for electric guitars was created by and is sustained completely by baby boomers. If you take baby boomers out of the question, you take away 80% of the market.
Or more.
Yeah, for electric guitars. So these crazy valuations on electric guitars were reflective of baby boomers' demand for them. And up till 7 or 8 years ago, people would pay anything for them. Well, now most baby boomers are either retired or thinking about retiring. So all of these investment guitars that they've been buying for 20 years, 25 years, guess what they're doing now? They're selling them.
Hey, David.
And it's a market. You know, there's a lot less demand for vintage guitars now because there's a lot less baby boomers interested in spending a lot of money on them.
There's some collector's aspect to some. If you look at the Gibson, there's a set of 3 books where it's the Stratocaster book, the Telecaster book, and the Gibson book. Mm-hmm. They're all kind of smaller sized books.
Yeah, the Blackguard book, all that stuff.
But if you look, in the Gibson Les Paul book, there's production numbers. And when you realize that like a 1957 Les Paul, they only made so many of them, maybe 500 or 600.
Yeah, they were a boutique company.
A lot of them are lost or trashed or altered.
They made more F-style mandolins back then than they did electric
exactly.
guitars.
So that drives some of the value up, especially when there's certain years where there were certain playability aspects, a neck shape or something like that. And
yeah, the
then
first Les Pauls with that trapeze thing, it was almost unplayable.
Yeah, but then you have people like Jimmy Page. You know, if Jimmy Page played something,
it was an old
aspect.
man's jazz guitar until the Brits came over playing it because they were buying them secondhand in England.
Yeah, nobody. When I was a kid, Les Paul, you really didn't want a Les Paul because it was older. You wanted an SG or a Strat.
Right.
You know,
right.
And
there's a funny story because like the Les Paul associated with Les Paul, kids didn't want to be associated with Les Paul until, Clapton and the Beano record and Jimmy Page, etc. And same thing with the Strat. The Strat was the worst selling guitar at Fender until Hendrix started playing. The Jaguar or the Jazzmaster, I think, was their hot guitar.
Jaguar was their
the really cool one. And then Hendrix came over. I guess Buddy Holly played them, but that's about it.
Right.
And the Tele was just a country guitar, simple beginner entry-level guitar. And then Hendrix started playing a Strat, and all of a sudden, everybody wants a Strat.
Unfortunately, that Les Paul article, that's whoever wrote that article wasn't very tech-savvy. The picture that they show in that article of the black Les Paul with the low impedance pickups in it and things like that. Right. That was a bastardization that was never.
Is that what became
really
the Les Paul Studio or something?
Yes, that eventually became the Les Paul Studio, which was almost the only thing that could have made that guitar dumber is if they would have put robo-tuners on it.
Oh, wait a minute. I think you can get that now. Justin Magana brings a good point, and then the Les Paul died completely.
Yes.
In the 80s. I mean, it was dead as a doornail. Peter and I used to work at Rhythm City in Atlanta. We couldn't give away Les Pauls. $590. They were $1,000 retail. We sold them for $595. And the only reason we had Les Pauls on the wall is because Gibson owned a bunch of brands. And if we didn't stock a certain number of Les Pauls, we couldn't carry all the other stuff. So George would just say, sell those fucking things. It doesn't matter. Just move them. And he would give us, it was funny because I knew he was paying $500 for the guitar. And we could sell them for $595 plus tax. And he would give us a $50 spiff to move them out. So he was making $45 gross on those guitars just to move them out. And then Slash came. Guns N' Roses showed up, and all of a sudden, oh, the Les Paul. We've always loved the Les Paul. You know, every guitar that we sold a lot of Strats. We sold a lot of Kramers and Jacksons and Charvels and Ibanez, anything that looked like a hockey stick and had a Floyd Rose on it. So which kind of all comes back to my point of the valuations on these guitars are artificial. You know, it's not like gold. You know, you can't buy things with an electric guitar. Electric guitars don't weather, economic changes that well. So when you see these large dealers passing on them, I think that's reflective of the fact that most of this stuff's just overvalued. You know, they're going to do a big public auction because they want to try to pump the price a lot. But I don't really see, and it's a prototype. I was talking earlier, like, it might be great, it might not. It's a very historical piece, a museum piece probably. But as far as it being a guitar, I mean, oftentimes, half the time, prototypes are pieces of shit. Because if it's a prototype, that means it wasn't done.
Yeah.
You know?
It were improved from there to become the production model.
They said, this is a good step we've taken, but let's do something more. So, hey, Fire Bottle, we see you. So anyway, it's, but the whole baby boomer market is, someone mentioned, Generation Xers love guitars. They do, but there's only like one of...
What is Generation X?
Well, it depends. Like, social scientists say that the baby boom was from 46 to 65 or 46 to 64, depending on which camp you're in. So Generation X is the one following the baby boomers, which is a gigantic drop-off in population. I mean, it's like 5 to 1. I mean, there's 5 of you for every one of me if I'm a Generation Xer. I might be the last year of the baby boom, I don't know.
Yeah, but we're all dying off pretty fast. So.
Well, you're either retired or you're thinking. I mean, I turned 50 this year, and retirement's on my mind every day. Buying expensive gear for me is, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
I got to pay for my kids' school, and I got to pay off my house and all these sorts of things. David Hayes says, I remember when Les Pauls were in pawn shops in the 70s for $250. Oh, yeah. I bought a couple of nice Les Pauls on the road for $350 in the 80s. I remember just thinking, I want a white guitar. So I found a Les Paul custom white creamy one. Really sexy guitar, gold hardware. I bought it in a pawn shop in Alabama for $300.
Ace Music in Santa Monica, when I came home from the military in '69, speaking about old people, they had brand new 68, the Les Paul Standard, which was P90s and gold top, was $400 retail, and the custom was $500 retail, but you could get the custom for $380, $385, and they'd throw in the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, David says, I'm thinking about quitting the amp thing soon. Well, I wouldn't quit, Dave, because you're really good at what you do, and I hope it makes you happy, at least. But it's a changing market. It's a very changing market. Baby boomers drive electric guitars. It's a baby boomer instrument. It's the hallmark instrument of the baby boom. That's why companies like Taylor and Collings, baby boomers are moving into acoustics. They want to sit around and drink a nice bottle of wine and play acoustic guitar. So it's changing a lot, and you're seeing that reflected in the retailers now. There's a lot of change in the retail market as far as guitar amps go. I mean, we're steady, which is great, because I think we sell a niche product. But the big open market for electric guitars and electric guitar amps is shrinking a lot.
The big grand, the grand builders of the past, people like Gibson,
They don't even make amps anymore.
Well, and they don't even make guitars. I mean, I would never buy a guitar. You know, things like these robo-tuners.
Have you seen the new headstock on the Les Paul?
Yes.
Where it looks like an 8-year-old did it with a marker?
Yeah, no, I just, you know, to
I
me.
thought that was a one-off thing, and I went to NAMM and looked through their stuff. They're all like that. And I just literally,
No,
the only thing that came to mind was the phrase, holy shit.
Gibson to me doesn't exist anymore. And like what I was telling some people about the robo-tuners, I said back in my day, if you wanted to play guitar, you had to know how to tune it. If you didn't want to learn to tune it, you took up piano.
Well, that's part of being a guitar player, is tuning the guitar. Yeah. Also, there is incumbent upon the guitar maker to make a guitar that stays in tune.
Yeah.
Which Gibson's not the best at. They're not the worst, but they're certainly not the best. It's one of those things. Once Henry's gone, it'll hopefully change. Yeah, that new headstock was astonishing to me. I couldn't rationalize it in any way when I saw it. It literally looks like a kid, like a third grader, took a marker and wrote the word Les Paul on it. And what's the purpose behind that?
David, if you're just tired, part of your problem is more and more people are becoming aware of what you do all the time, and your prices are about half what they should be.
That's true, Dave.
So what I would do...
You're not charging people for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of throwing the labor for free, or apparently. And then you're using, good components. But
just on a side note, if you guys are looking for a Fender that's better than a Fender, look up David Hayes.
I mean, basically Fender and Gibson, or Fender and Marshall were like the Ford and Chevy of... They were the amps that were affordable to the...
They're also the ones that didn't break down.
Right.
That's the only reason Vox didn't get more traction, Ampeg didn't get more... Orange.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nightmares.
Those things are hand grenades. High watts. All of those amps sound equally as good as a Fender or a Marshall, but they weren't as roadworthy. So you look at, like, The Who, for example. They started out with Voxes and went to Marshalls. And the only reason he switched to high watts is because Dan Reeves, Dave Reeves, or whatever, was making custom ones for him. And they're built like absolute tanks because the way they smashed amps around, they broke them all the time.
No, Dave, I would just double your prices, which is still a killer deal.
Selmer, that's right, Troy.
Still a killer deal, and hopefully make, half as many amps and give you some more breathing space.
So Rock and Roll Willie asks, what's the last year for viable late model Gibsons? Well, the custom shop ones are still fine. They're just ungodly expensive. I mean, $8,000. I have a couple of custom shop Les Pauls that are over the last, I guess now 13 years, and they're great. And I've played some new ones that are really good. I've played some new ones that aren't great. Gibsons are like any guitar. If you're going to go buy a Les Paul, you need to play 10 of them, because they're all just a little different because they're wood. They can't cut wood exactly the same every time because the grain and the thickness.
Somebody asked, it went off the screen, have I heard about the something tube?
Oh, Justin Magana, the new tube thing?
Yeah, if you're talking about that thing that looks like an integrated circuit.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually posted that story on my Facebook page. Somebody sent it to me, and then I shared it.
Yeah.
And what that is it's basically like an FET. It's everybody keeps reinventing the wheel. I showed some stuff called Tone Grinder that I showed pictures of and stuff on that post that I did, which was, they basically came out with some stuff. I took pictures at the amp show a couple years ago, where it's a solid state tube replacement that plugs into a 12AX7 position.
Yeah, this is like a board mount thing.
Yeah, it's an IC.
It looks like a...
Yeah, it looks like a...
Like a big
MOSFET
or something.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is stupid because it won't fit in a socket and it's not a tube, and for many other reasons. But people that are doing Fetrons and stuff, Mesa Boogie and the Mark I, they had an issue with microphonics. And so what they had a mod, and you can actually look at how to convert your amp back if it had that mod.
Yeah.
Where
Well, I mean,
V1 was a Fetron instead of.
aren't all Dumbles the first gain stage is a FET, right?
Well, only
oh,
in
that's
the,
a switch.
Yeah,
You can
that's a
turn it on,
switch.
yeah.
That's for the overdrive.
But they sound great.
Yeah,
You know.
but I mean, I think that thing's kind of.
No, this was like a tech bulletin sort of thing about a thing that's, I think Korg is developing it, and they want to use it in keyboards for the most part. But it's supposedly a dual triode type thing. I don't know. Lots of potential if it's good. If it's not, then it's just some other mousetrap. But Haas Thompson says, didn't Townsend end up owing a shit ton of money to Jim Marshall that he wouldn't pay, and that soured the relationship? Probably. I had one really substantive conversation with Jim Marshall at NAMM, and what he told me was he always made those guys pay. And that Townsend was coming into his shop from the time he was a kid. And he used to just come in and take stuff and run out the door and go, I'll pay you after we get paid, mate. And Townsend got used to just taking stuff from Jim. And after a while, Jim said no. And at the same time, I think Hiwatt was trying to woo Townsend. And so, like all young musicians, he said, I'll play free gear. I don't care. Because back then, they all sounded good. They're big British tube amps. They all sounded really nice. Mark.
Yes, they do build that thing as a dual triode, but it doesn't have a vacuum in there. It's not. It is a solid state device.
It is, okay.
Okay, and basically, if you think about a single triode, what's a transistor? It's three devices: emitter, base, collector.
Right.
Just like plate, grid, and screen.
Exactly.
I mean, you can call anything a triode.
If it's got three pieces, it's a triode. Okay, so just before it goes off the screen, Mark asks, are the Tupelo transformers the same design as the producer in the way that you described? No, they're not, Mark. Tupelo is more of a traditional amp. It's pretty high voltage. It's not crazy voltage, but it's pretty high. Of our amps, the only ones that are kind of increased current with lower voltage are the producers, and to a mild extent, the Ventura, but not nearly to the level of the producers. Let's see, not to digress, but Henry J equals Irwin Mainway. Enough said. Irwin Mainway. What is that reference? Mainway Industries?
I don't know. I'm totally uninformed.
It's ringing a bell, but the fucking coffee machine's not working, so I'm a little bit low IQ. Ackroyd. Oh, yeah, that's right. Mainway Industries, he would sell, like, as toys for kids, a bag of broken glass. Yeah, right. And Jane Curtin would always go, isn't this dangerous? And no, look, you can smash it. You can do all it's kids have fun with it. He was selling trash, dangerous trash to kids.
No, my personal opinion on guitars today is, and this is just a personal opinion, I would not, there are too many great guitar builders out there.
There's a lot.
That have less than 5 people. So you're not paying
Johnny Switchblade, yeah.
So you're not paying for
right.
the overhead and the advertising and all of this kind of stuff. To me,
right.
Gibson is no longer viable. To me, Fender is no longer viable.
They're all reinventing their business model right now.
And
I mean, there's demand's going down. Someone posted earlier that there's a $1,300 increase on a Les Paul Standard this year. I wonder if they're getting to the point of their life cycle. Like there's certain builders, I won't say names, but you know who I'm talking about, who have to cover their nut by making amps or guitars. So they say, I can only make this many products per year. My annual nut is this. So I take this divided by that number of products, and that's what they cost. Which is why, certain products just cost exponentially higher than others because you're paying for the guy. The only way he can make these products is to make a living off of it. And it's fair. Whether you choose to participate in that business model or not, it's another conversation. But, we know a couple of guitar makers and amp makers. That's their business model. It cost me $150,000 to pay all my medical bills and to cover my mortgage. And so I can only make 10 things a year, so they cost $15,000. And, you know, that's it. I wonder if Gibson's getting to that point, you know, where they're like, well, this is our.
Well, except they're putting a lot of money into ancillary things like the robo tuners,
right,
and
which is
that,
a joke.
You know,
yeah.
it's you know, I mean, if you look at a Fender made in Mexico Strat,
yeah,
they're great.
They're as good as anything else they make.
They're great because the
I mean,
machines.
the hardware is not the same, but the guitar itself.
Yeah,
is,
the machinery that carves the pieces out is tighter tolerance than the stuff in Fullerton because it's new, it's not old.
Right, and at the custom shop in Fullerton, they have the original machines
exactly.
from the 50s.
And
I mean, they're gorgeous.
And the
they're
guys
cute.
making the stuff are thrilled to have a job, and if they're making $15 an hour,
or not Fullerton, Corona, but
yeah, they're thankful.
They all got trained in Corona, and
Yeah.
then when Fender opened up the Mexican factory, all those guys just moved home.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so they're made by the same people that were making Fenders in the 80s. You know, but anyway, it's an interesting dynamic. The world is changing. Rock and Roll Willie says, I feel embarrassed for Gibson currently. Well, I think they're going through some changes, and you'll probably see them try things in a few directions to see where they get traction. But I mean, I think at an overall level, the thing that most people are in denial about is what we were talking about earlier. It's like this whole thing of rock and roll and an electric guitar and blah, 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 blah. That's a baby boomer thing. Just like jazz was a Depression era World War II thing.
Well,
you know,
one thing that confirms...
Once those people got to a certain age, jazz diminished as far as being dominant. You know, jazz was everywhere. Rock and roll was a side note.
Well, one point that confirms or points to what you're saying is the biggest artists today are, you know, Kanye West and people like, you know, hip hop kind of people.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Kanye today too.
Or, you know, and
I thought his actions were very revealing of some.
But I mean, how much, you know,
on.
what was the cool guitar solo? Tell me the guitar tone and the cool guitar solo in a Kanye West, Beyonce, anything that's popular.
Guitar's not mainstream.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are great rock and roll bands out there. They're not on the charts.
Right. You go see them live.
They don't fill big venues.
Right.
I mean, you see bands that used to fill stadiums playing at, you know, the
Disneyland, Tomorrowland,
or the Wiltern.
Yeah.
You know, like, or they'll play at the Greek and it's half empty.
Yeah.
You know, where they used to sell it out 3 nights in a row. Hey, Ron, all the guys at Gibson Custom Shop are completely frustrated with Henry's poor ideas. Yeah, I think that's pretty universal at Gibson. Noel says, I blame Bono. Oh, don't dash on your fellow Irishman there, Noel. Yeah, my 96 Les Paul Bill Studio says my 96 LP standard was $1,500 out the door. Yeah. Yeah, Kanye. You know, we talked about this on Facebook yesterday, and Dr. Noel was involved in it. I was trying to get his professional opinion as a mental health professional, and he took the high road and said, I can't do that as an ethical psychologist, which is fair, and it was a stupid question for me to ask him. But to me, what it looks like, when someone like Beck, who clearly Kanye has no fucking clue that Beck already won 7 Grammys, and he's a respected guy, and his father is the conductor of an, you know, Philharmonic.
Knows something about music.
Well, David Campbell was the conductor of like the New York Philharmonic.
Yeah.
You know, and so Beck is a musician who plays, I think he said he plays 10 instruments. I mean, like, well, not like I can play drums, but I'm not a drummer.
Right.
Beck can play 10 instruments. He can write film score, full orchestra charts. And he makes really funny, goofy music, but with deep lyrical content and heavy production. And he plays a lot of the instruments on the record. So I think when Kanye sees someone like that get traction, it scares him. Because in his heart of hearts, he knows he's a charlatan.
Yeah.
He knows he's getting away with murder, and he knows he has enough money and enough profile that he can bully people around. No, I'm the best there is, and my wife's a legend, and he can go out and he can get on all the talk shows because he can sort of bully people into buying his bullshit story. And having said that, like, I've heard some of his songs that groove and they're kind of fun, but for the most part, they're meaningless crap to me, but because I'm old. But when he sees someone like Beck win a Grammy, in his subconscious mind, he's thinking,
The gig's
fuck,
up.
if people start liking this kind of music, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows he just panics. He just panics. And I think that's what it was, because I don't know why they don't ban that guy from the ceremony. It's just crazy. He wants Beyonce to win the album of the year. Does he even write her songs? He doesn't write his own songs. But it doesn't mean Beyonce's bad. It just means this year people were digging back. Dr. Knoll says, I think Kanye is speaking from a place of institutional whiteness, not acknowledging black artistry. Well, that's a fair point. So he's speaking from a political agenda that's legit but misplaced. Absolutely. I mean, recognizing black artists is one thing. Excluding white artists from being considered is another thing. I think those things might not parallel there, Noel. I mean, Kanye's won a lot of awards. Black artists win a lot of awards. Black music is mainstream music. As much as there is 100% truth to the fact that black artists have been abused and kept down, and they're doing pretty good right now. And I think it's a weak crutch to stand on at this point, especially from a guy who's made hundreds of millions of dollars in the business. For him to say the white man's keeping Beyonce down, like, how is Beyonce kept down? I mean,
Yeah, I'm the one driving the Toyota.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone's got a better fucking life than Beyonce. I mean, my God, talk about wild success. I mean, she could record herself rolling trash cans down the street and release it and sell 2 million copies. Not to mention, I think she's a talented person. I mean, she's a great singer, great dancer, has created a thing. It's not necessarily my thing, but I recognize it as a really good thing. And there's some substance to it. Unlike Kanye West, I don't see a lot of substance to it. I see a lot of hype and a lot of image, but I don't see a lot of substance to it. Yeah, and I think Jay-Z and Beyonce are capable of taking care of themselves, Itchy Bro brings up. Jay-Z is one of the richest people in the music business. I mean, he's as rich as McCartney. I think they're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and Paul McCartney made it over decades. Jay-Z made it over a couple years.
Right. And Dr. Knoll says, and he also likes being a victim. Yeah, that's, again, I think that's just a false crutch that he stands on. He's not a victim. I mean, there's the obvious Kim Kardashian jokes that I'll leave alone there, but my synopsis was, I think he just has a really, really tiny cock.
To Kid Gloves, talking about the Roots, yeah, the Roots are pretty spectacular, but when you realize that the guy that they back also is a pretty proficient musician himself and a pretty darn good guitar player.
Who's that?
I want to say Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, Fallon, yeah, he's a musician.
I get Fallon.
Oh, the Roots are just
Kimmel.
The Roots are an amazing band. They're just so narrow in their audience that they didn't get traction. I also think that they don't want to be the big touring crazy
like
band
the gig that they're doing.
They're a jam. They're a house band.
They show up for TV filming and
yeah, and those guys are all like some of the most prolific studio artists in New York now. I mean, Questlove is. Yeah, that guy works all the time. And Dr. Knoll says, micro penis when small problems seem big. I want to make a t-shirt for that. Kanye West. and his micro penis. When small problems, to be honest with you, on a human level, I feel bad for the guy because I wouldn't want to be in his head. I think living inside of his head is not a happy place. I think it's a scared, insecure place. It's a juvenile way he handles it, but I think he's just in a really bad place. And his ego is so gigantic that he just assumes he has to be the king of the world. I'm not sure. And he managed to get us talking about him. That's correct. It is PR. And we're giving Kanye PR, but the thing I mentioned on Facebook yesterday is Beck's response was almost like a third grade soccer coach, to the uncoordinated kid on the team who just fucks up every time. No, it's okay. Come here. No, come on. It's okay. You're part of the team. Come on. You'll get your chance. And that was the way Beck was talking to him. He was saying, no, he deserves to be on stage. It's okay. Like everybody just be nice to this poor kid, which is the way that's, I thought that was really mature and big of him, which is two things Kanye would never do.
Well, have you ever heard Kanye say anything
other than I'm great?
That wasn't negative towards something else or some subject,
Yeah,
like what you say, inside his head, it's probably a really dark place.
I think so. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. Of course, he's a complete and utter fucking asshole for doing what he did, and he needs to be spanked hard for that. But what motivates someone to do that? It's not rational, happy thoughts. Only something really negative and dark would make someone say, I'm going to run up on stage at the Grammys and bitch about the decision that the Grammy board made. That's ugly. That's really ugly. So anyway, God bless Kanye. We hope he works it out in the future. And just on a side note, Kanye, your wife's butt's not going to age well. I'm just going to tell you. I'm just saying. And if your cock is already this big, what can you do? I don't know. Anyway, Haas brings up a good point. The greatest musicians I've ever met have always been incredibly modest because they don't have anything to prove. They let their instrument do the talking for them. Mr. New York call, I'll have to call you back. Kanye West, Bill Studio says, Kanye misspelled, never heard of him. Yeah, I haven't either, to be honest. I don't know. The only song of his I know is the one that I thought was where he sampled Ray Charles. She gives me money. And he says, I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but she ain't going for no broke. And it was like, I get it. I was like, oh, that's clever. What would have happened if Pete Carroll jumped up when the Patriots were getting their trophy? Yeah. Hey, Profane Airplane, how are you, buddy? Yeah, the public is the only force that can punish Kanye, and it won't happen. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of silly. Anyway, I just wanted to throw out my take on it because I thought this poor son of a bitch is living in an ugly, ugly place. Really, really ugly place. And I don't think it's going to last. I don't know how many times he can do that. And still, look at R. Kelly, right? He got convicted of child molestation, and it came out in the trial that one of the things he likes to do is pee on little girls, underage girls. He liked to pee on them. They still love him. It's like, I don't care. The beat's good. Oh, okay. He somehow bought his way out of prison, or he did a little bit of prison time or something. But yeah, he was sleeping with underage kids and peeing on them. And I don't know.
See, they should have never taken sex education out of the school system. That's not how it works.
That's more biology class.
Yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Dr. Knoll says they were on fire. Fair enough. I don't know. I consider peeing on children a little odd. How about you guys? Let's put up a poll right now.
I've never even peed on my dog.
I don't think I've ever peed on another being.
I've only peed in a toilet or outside or off the back of a boat.
Well, I've peed on things, but not living things. Living
like
animals.
A rock if you're
I've
outside.
peed on bushes that were alive.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I've never gone to anything with a heartbeat and said, "Hey, come here. Look at this." Jangle Fuzz says, "I only pee on the snow." Yeah.
I've never even done that.
Yeah, Chris Brown beat the shit out of Rihanna, and it's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's rock stars that have done a bunch of crazy stuff. Profane airplane, I can't read that. That's very funny, though. The things we hear on lunch. Yeah, well, you know, when you got a tech talk, this can go anywhere. This can go anywhere. Now we're talking about a rap artist peeing on children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did we get into that? Something about ribbon microphones?
Tubes, solid state tubes. But see what happens when we bring up Kanye West. Okay, let's get to the tech. So I had a couple of questions on Facebook today.
The smooth switch.
The smooth switch, right? What does it do? And most of you guys nailed it. Oh my God, these comments that are on here right now. How many ribbons do I own, Bill? I just have one right now. Oh God, I'm still laughing about what somebody just wrote on the chat room. So the smooth switch does two things for the most part. One of which is it's a biasing thing that keeps the triode from losing its ground reference when it's pushed really hard. So what does that mean to you as a listener? What it means is the crossover distortion goes away. It has two effects. On an EL84, it really gets rid of the fizz. And it makes it sound very clear and more focused, and allows you to push the amp really hard without it getting floppy and squishy. With a 6v6, it's a little different thing that happens. The 6v6 is more prone to crossover distortion, which Fender distortion, there's a lot of crossover distortion in that. That's why it has a lot of that fizzy, fuzzy stuff on top. So with a 6v6, not only does it get rid of the crossover distortion, but you're going to see the tube start to perform a lot better, like quickly. So when you hit that switch, you're going to see this thing happen where the tube kind of gets big, loud, and proud. So that's all it's doing. You know, the net result as a player is it's going to be a little louder. It's not necessarily gain. It's not more distortion or anything. It's just bigger and fuller. And with an EL84, with the limited range that an EL84 has, it won't get big, loud, and proud. But what it's going to do is just misbehave less when you do that. So it's nice to be able to turn that off, and you can get a wild sounding Valco amp kind of sound when you crank the shit out of it. But then you can also bring it in and tighten it up and make it perform in a better way. Who was asking that question, Haas? Was it Jason somebody? Jared Stevens says, which amps have the smooth switch? That's mostly on the Elvis and the Tupelo. That circuit is on all of our amps, but with that particular preamp, we noticed a really big difference when you cut it in and out, so we decided to put it on the switch. Yeah, Haas, you were right, man. You nailed it. It's not. I didn't come up with the circuit idea, Bill. I'd love to take credit for it. It's a hi-fi trick. It's an old hi-fi trick to get rid of crossover distortion. So we have that. You do it with a Zener and a diode. And so when the ground reference starts to lift up on that, the Zener will limit it. Just, you know, there's a certain amount of bias voltage that can happen there. So then it won't get overcooked and start to lift up, which is what you hear when you hear crossover distortion, is especially in the phase inverter. It'll start to lift up.
One of the folks in here was asking me about, and it was on Facebook, and I ended up I ended up getting into a conversation on the telephone with whoever it was. They were asking me about KT88s,
Right.
whether they handle high voltages and
Not new ones.
stuff, and not
Yeah.
new ones. And so I ended up calling him and getting into a discussion. And I'll kind of reiterate, this is not KT88s, this is all tubes in general. When I was at Groove Tubes, there were a batch of tubes, 6CA7s, that when I went to test them, if I tested them at 350 plate volts, they would fail. 95% of them would fail within.
Haas and Bill, hold that thought, because I have an answer for you, but I'm curious what Miles has to say here.
They'd fail within 15 minutes, actually within 5 minutes. And if I dropped it to 250,
They were lasting
15 minutes.
They were lasting 2 minutes when we were testing them at
Right.
475.
Somebody said to me, well, what if they drop the screen voltage? And that's when I said, look, here's my cell number, call me on the phone, because
Right.
this is not a simple answer. Basically, when you have high voltage, in the good tubes of the past, people like Jim Kelly,
Old ones could take 800, right? Books back.
Exactly,
Yeah, somebody
exactly.
said 500 here, but it's
no, it was 800 and
yeah.
450 on the screens, or 500 on the screens.
no, the Gold Lions on their
Well,
tech
Gold
sheet.
Lions,
They were 800 on the plates and 700 on the screens.
but
Yeah, at least the book spec was.
But basically, what happens today, if you ever, on some output tubes, you can actually look inside if they have vented plates,
Yeah.
and you can see the cathode glowing orange. If you look at old tubes, you'll see nothing but that orange. If you look at newer tubes, you'll see the orange and little flecks of purple,
Yeah.
magenta, and these other colors.
Those are zits.
That's all impurities.
Yeah.
And impurities, different ones react to different voltages, and they gasify, and they contaminate the tube internally, and you get gas shorts and things like that. So the main problem today is, secondarily, it's the alignment of the grids and the spacing and the quality control. That's a secondary problem. The primary.
Let me jump in here really quick, because there's a comment here that's relevant. Profane Airplanes asking, is it because of the cheap Chinese materials in the new tubes? I don't know. I think metal's metal, but
Well, no,
I think
part of it-
it's a cleanliness, though, isn't it?
It's cleanliness. Like, for example, if you used to look at Shiguang in China,
Right.
the grid winding machines, there's a little cotton felt pad
Right.
wiper, and that's supposed to be clean. And if you go look at the machines there, it's black.
It's just filthy.
People weren't
Looks like an old pipe cleaner. right?
people weren't changing them, and
Right.
that was one of the issues. The thing is, a lot of I did a metallurgical study on some of the plate materials on some of the Russian tubes, and it was never the same. And at one point, I found Monel in the steel.
What's Monel?
And Monel is only used in the marine industry for underwater fittings, like through hulls and propeller shafts.
That's odd.
So
Think
it's
it was
not
like-
old. It's not odd when you realize that a lot of the steel that they use in Russian
It's
tubes
remelts.
comes from scrapped out Russian ships.
I was going to
Okay.
say it's recycled.
So
yeah.
so it's never the same. But anyway, these different kinds of metals have contaminants in them also. So the thing is, if there's 800 volts or 600 volts on pin 3, your plate voltage, even if you drop your screen voltage to like 200 or 300 volts, the operating parameters of the tube might differ, but you still have that
Right.
voltage present, and these impurities gasify, and the barium that's in the getter, that silver thing that's in the tube, it is normally there to get rid of excess oxygen and contaminants that are in the tube, but in a tube that has a reasonable level of contaminants, not some big chunk of whatever that's just going to keep emitting and emitting and emitting garbage. So the problem today is the contamination aspect of these tubes. They don't run at decent yet at higher voltages, and higher voltage that used to be 700 volts in like a Music Man amp and things like that.
SVTs.
Yeah, your only hope is to go NOS because it's just a matter of time. It's not if the tube's going to blow up, it's when the tube's going to blow up.
Right.
And one of the reasons that the producer is so easy on tubes is what's a plate voltage on a producer 6L or EL
290.
or something? Yeah, I mean, so you got impurities that have basically at 390 or 425 volts are going to start gasifying. That's never going to happen on a producer.
Right.
And
well, with the producer, we found that like any tube sounds good.
well, and you have the
just like back
longevity
at-
aspect, but also
Yeah.
tubes like current more than they like voltage.
Right. And
It just sound
that's
better.
how we went down that road. I heard you and 10 other tube experts say the same little catchphrase. Tubes hate voltage, love current. Man, I'm getting pester dialed here. Hold on a second.
Itchy Bro, yeah, the maritime stuff comes into play because I was originally trained as a aviation metalsmith, and my master's is in naval architecture and marine engineering. So I always get involved technically with boat-related kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of guys are bringing up the tube project I was starting. Yeah, it's on hold for now. I got to find a lot of money and a few years to dedicate to it.
Those folks that are in Nevada, I forgot their name,
Hi, Lachlan and Melbourne,
that
Australia.
bought all the groove tubes equipment. I had one big discussion with them a year and a half ago, maybe longer at this point, and that was the end of it. I don't think, basically they were trying to resurrect the old groove tubes equipment. They bought it all from Aspen.
Right.
Good luck.
So Lachlan, we have a friend. Everybody welcome Lachlan James from Melbourne, Australia. Boy, it's like, what, middle of the night there for you. Welcome, buddy. Can the Soho red line switching be modded to boost and bump engaged together through the foot switch? We tried it. It didn't work without being incredibly noisy. If you want to give it a shot, you can. We don't get a lot of requests for that, but switching two different kinds of things like that increase gain and signal can be difficult. 400 plus million in the lotto today. If I win, let's green light the tube thing. Okay, Troy, I'll hold you to it. Yeah, if I win the lottery too, don't look for it. Yeah. I'm going to.
If I win the lottery, I wouldn't be making tubes. I'd leave.
Yeah.
I'd stop doing amps. I'd leave.
I think I'd
be done.
I think I would be.
You'd live somewhere else, and the hell with the hell with everybody.
I get this question a lot. People ask, "What would you do? If money weren't an issue?" Honestly, I'd be a philanthropist. I mean, because I think realistically, how I tend to think in logical steps and play out scenarios. I think the first thing that would happen would be elation, and then terror.
And then denial.
No,
and
I think it would literally be terror because with that much money around, I would have to protect my daughters and my wife. Because there's a very good chance unscrupulous people would try to get that money from me by doing something like that. So I'd have to live this guarded, gated, bodyguard bullshit kind of life, which doesn't appeal to me at all. Even though I could just buy whatever I wanted. But then I think the next stage after that is guilt. Like I'd watch the news about people at a food bank or people who couldn't pay for medical care or whatever. And I go, well, I can afford to help that guy. I can afford to help that mother with 3 kids. Yeah, let me stock your refrigerator, whatever, anything like that. But with 485 million that's up there right now, okay, I think the school system's fucked here in LA. I can fix it, It just
No, you could fix a couple of the schools for 10 minutes because the people that manage that, LAUSD, for example,
Yeah.
could run through that money in 2 weeks.
yeah, but I could really express some influence.
No, you can't because it's LAUSD.
No, but I might just go down and say I don't like the guy. Get rid of that guy.
You'd be cheaper off paying $20,000 some gang guy
Yeah.
and having the
Just
head
have
of
it
LAUSD
just popped.
eliminated.
Just get him popped.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I'd do that, but anyway, you get my point. Is that once you get past the holy shit, I can buy anything in the world. Okay, that's neat. I think that stage will last for maybe 2 days before you start to realize, oh crap, like I can really. There's some danger here having this much money. Like people that live at that level. They're practically living their own version of the witness protection program. And I know a couple people that are at that level of money, and they've gone through periods where they literally had to move. And one of my friends, who you know really well, was at that point for a while. He literally, I couldn't find him. I mean, he didn't exist. There's no social security record. There's no previous addresses. It's, because there was a threat against his family, against his children. And it was him and his father-in-law that were the subject of that. And so for like 3 years, and like all of his cars have bulletproof glass in them, that kind of stuff. It's like, God, who wants to live like that? Which is just crazy. But anyway, you get my point of like you down at the Union Rescue Mission. I could go down there with you one night with that kind of money and say, I got it, bill's on me.
Well, except there are people that the head of Stubbs Barbecue, the folks on Daily Grill.
Yeah.
They come down there and they put on a whole meal and they bring the people. On Yelp, I do a lot of stuff in Yelp because when you check in, you physically have to be there. It looks at your GPS and everything, or it won't let you check in. But if you're physically there and check in, there's a lot of times a little offer, like second meal free or free drink or whatever. Yeah. And I write some reviews on Yelp, as do billions of other people.
Right.
And on Daily Grill, I gave them 5 stars. And I explained the reason I gave them 5 stars is because their business model allows them to do things like, and then I have
helps other
photos.
folks out, yeah.
Well, I have photos of them at Union Rescue Mission with their Daily Grill shirts.
Right.
Serving all the people at a thing. And I said, so any company that can do something like this gets an extra star kind of thing.
It just, everything you look at, it would cross your mind of like, oh, okay, kids need computers. Wait a minute, a lot of kids need food. Mm-hmm. A lot of kids need safety. Then you start thinking globally of like Ebola. Well, if I threw $50 million over, it's like,
but
I think it would drive you nuts.
Bill Gates, with all the positive work he does, if Bill Gates can't do it, like I said, the best thing that you would do is pack up your family and leave.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you get the point. It's like your brain would go there.
Yeah.
And that would drive you crazy.
My brain wouldn't go there. I get up every morning and I just do whatever I want to do, and I don't have enough money that I have to worry about.
Well, on your side, you could go out on dates with a lot of young girls.
But that's not because I have money.
It wouldn't hurt.
It's because I basically listen. It's a circle of friends thing.
No, I get it. And girls with daddy issues, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Granddaddy issues.
Yeah.
And
no. No. I don't know if I can say that on the recording, but that's funny.
I don't know.
This is coming from a guy, I don't know, he has a practice. I want him to feel like he's in the safe zone here. Yeah, but that's funny. No, you get the lollipop today, man. That was.
Which one was that?
He's the third one down there right now.
Oh, yeah. I haven't done that yet, and probably won't. I'm too old school.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You got me on that
Which
one.
actually, for the people that are on this now and that are also friends of mine on Facebook that live in SoCal,
Yes.
open invitation, and some of you have gone on some of these antics.
Right.
But we do a lot of weird stuff sometimes at night in groups of people.
These guys are killing.
And anybody here is welcome. Just reply to one of the things when I post on Yelp or Facebook that goes to Facebook.
Yeah.
And say, hey, where are you going to be in the next 30 minutes? I'll meet you there.
Oh, my God.
So that's kind of what happens. And who knows? You might meet somebody that'll change your life. I've been married 3 times, and luckily I'm at the age where
These guys are killing me. huh?
I don't have to deal with that anymore.
So for those of you watching the recording, do 2 things for me.
A race.
No, one of which is join Namubu so that you can participate in the chat. It's free. They don't take a lot of demographic information or anything like that. It's just musicians hanging out, being weird. But if you're watching the recording, you're missing some really good stuff on the chat room that I can't repeat. And
Do you have to be signed on as a user in order to see the chats?
you can see the chat, but if
But
you
you
want
can't
to post,
participate, right.
you got to sign up. And it's
Yeah.
not like they're not asking for a credit card or anything like that. It's just literally so they know who you are, so you don't come on and say, here's how you build an atomic bomb anonymously or post inappropriate shit without being accountable for it. Because unlike a lot of social media places, there's a strong sense of decorum here. Obviously not in my chat room, which is fine, but on Namubu itself, there's a very high standard here. These guys are Canadian, so they're typically gentlemen, as you would expect.
I don't know. I've heard them talk to you on the phone, and they're very professional.
Yeah.
And their customer service is phenomenal, but
Right.
they also, I think, have a sense of humor.
Oh, they're human beings, and they'll
Yeah.
go down in the gutter with anybody, but they're not the ones going to go there first.
Yeah.
There's a nice sense of decorum on the website here. You don't see a lot of, look what my cat did, or my kid got an award in 2nd grade, or here's a politician that I hate, or here, you know what I mean, or here's some religious scripture I'm going to stick up your nose. And,
On that note, I tied for 2nd place today in my 2nd place tie out of 5 people in trap shooting today.
oh,
So
nice.
that's-
See? You can post that on Facebook.
there.
Yeah, you can post that on Facebook.
But since you said that kind of stuff doesn't come up here,
It doesn't.
Thought
People don't post that kind of stuff here. It's all just, we're musicians, so we're all incredibly neurotic, broken people with a huge hole in our life who fill it with music. And so you're kind of in the safe zone here. It's very cool. It's very cool. And it's just a startup. I mean, they started a little test bed in Montreal with no advertising, no marketing, nothing.
16 yards. Actually, we did 16 and then 17, 18, 19. Didn't go all the way to 27 when somebody was asking about the yardage.
So anyway, do me a favor, sign up and come participate live so you can see what's going by here on the screen, because it's funny. It's really good. And especially when you know who it's coming from. It's just rich. It's rich. Rich. And golden, as it were.
That could be your new amp name.
The Golden Shower.
There you go.
These guys are killing me now. I encourage all of this vulgarity and wrongness that's going on the chat room, just so you know. I'm all for it. The camera's on me, so I have to act somewhat dignified. But please feel free to open the kimono, as it were, when you come up here. 2015 for 65 amps. Good question, Lachlan, and good segue. The Little Whiskey, which I believe your guy in Melbourne there, Deluxe, has ordered a few of them. So you should see those pretty soon. That's an EL84 base whiskey. Yes, I am going to upload the Ron Ellis episode on YouTube probably this weekend. So look for that. My editing time is slow because of my machine and because I don't have a lot of time. But yeah, and then speaking of Ron, I was going to try to put this in today, but I love it when this box shows up at my house from San Diego. The next version of the humbucker that's going in the Elliott Strat that's there. So I might try to get that in this afternoon, and I'll play it next week. Sorry, Ron, I meant to get it in today, but I couldn't. My phone just rang off the hook. And but anyway, I'm excited. Look, I'm ready to rock.
Actually, you shouldn't put that in your guitar yourself.
I don't know what I'm doing, so I want to.
No, you put tons of pickups in yourself. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying I did it well, though.
No, I think you do it great. You approach that like you approach building amps.
Yeah.
I just think that's a good excuse to drive down there.
Oh, to go see Ron? Well, I hung out with Ron last week in San Diego. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Went to Roberto's Tacos in Carmel Valley Road in Del Mar. Oh, right on the water. Best Mexican food. Oh, that shit'll set you free, baby. It is. That's so good down there. The closer you get to Mexico, the better the Mexican food. But a hand-wired wah pedal. Well, sure, Haas, we could do that. Justin knows Roberto's. Yeah, dude. Did I see you get rid of the L5? Yeah, I did. I sold it a couple months ago. I got a lot of money for it, too. I kind of felt guilty I got so much money for it. Because I only paid like $275 for it, I think, and I got $800. It's like, oh, okay. I just put it on an auction thinking, hey, if I can get $200 out of it, I'll be fine. And the bids just went through the roof. Like, okay. So I guess I bought it on the cheap. You still want to do the Dan Boul theme? Sample Let's Dance by Bowie and swap it out with the words, it's lunch, ba-dum, boom, boom, dum, ba-doom, boom, boom. Okay, do it. I'm all for it. As long as you can, I can direct the Bowie's lawyers to you. But I think that would be hilarious, Haas. I think that would be great. Oh, sorry, you're in England. As long as his solicitors can contact you about intellectual property. Anyway, it's getting time. I got to go. I got to go pick up kids today and all this sort of stuff. So it was a light lunch with Dan Boul today. But we covered a lot of ground. We went over baby boomers. You know where I'm going. Baby boomers, vintage guitar valuations, Kanye West, peeing on people, some circuitry in 65 amps. What's new for 65 amps?
Some tube nonsense.
Some tube gear, some tube chat, which was really good. And a little bit, one other thing is like our pedal sales are through the roof. So thank you guys. All three of our germanium pedals are really, really well accepted. So I'm very grateful for that. So thank you guys very much. And a lot of product suggestions going on here. So anyway, thank you guys. Troy Ballerstein says, you're in for a good time. Spelled it wrong, but yes. When is the box set of pedals coming out? Well, you know what? We're making so many of the individuals right now. It's kind of tough, but I'm going to do it. I promise. I wanted to do it for Christmas, but as they say in Latin, I suck. We're just busy. We're buried. So it's good. Life is good, and I appreciate your guys' time. I had a lot of fun today. Thanks, Miles, for coming by and hanging out. The banter is always great. And we'll see you guys next week. I will have the new Ron Ellis pickup in the blue Elliott Strat. And hopefully have a little whiskey back over here to play and some other stuff. And we'll move forward. So on that bombshell, I'm going to call it a day. We'll see you guys next week. And take care. Bye-bye. Hang on a second. Let me shut off FMLE because I think they can hear me still.